welcome to episode 2 of Meridittle Makes. It's a little bit later than I was hoping my second episode would be, but that's okay. I think we're keeping it to when it's feasible for me to record, when the light is good enough, because I'd like to try and keep it to natural light if I possibly can. So it's all fine. But thank you so much for joining me again. I'm Mary, nice to meet you. I am a fabric artist, designer, something. So I like yarn. I like all things to do with yarn and fibre. And I'm coming to you from Bristol in the UK. I still haven't quite worked out what the format and intro and things is going to be for these, but I'm trying to keep it quite informal and not hold myself to too high of an editing standard, because I feel like that probably means I won't be able to keep up with this. But I really enjoyed doing my first episode, and thank you so much to everybody who gave me such amazing feedback on episode 1. I really appreciate it. The knitting community and the yarn community is just generally speaking such an incredibly supportive place, and I think that's part of why I wanted to help contribute and give back to it, because it's been a really important part of my life, especially in the last few years, because of things that we're not going to talk about on this podcast. So first of all, I will do a little bit of what I'm wearing, but before that I'm going to also talk about what I'm going to be sipping on for this podcast. I might not do this every episode, but when I have something of interest to talk about, I'm going to talk about it. So this mug is a beautiful handmade mug from Barton Croft, and it's sadly the handle on it cracked a couple of years ago, and my sister did some Japanese repair work, so it's got a little gold chunk on it now, which I actually really love. And I am sipping on a really lovely roasted black tea that was gifted to us by Alex, who, if you watch Heather and Hop's podcast, he is Kat's husband, who appears on the podcast from time to time, and he works for POSTCARD teas, which are really, really beautiful. And if you haven't tried them, I highly recommend. This tea is delightful. So I made a pot this morning because I was feeling particularly rubbish, and enjoying it out of one of my favourite mugs, which makes me very, very happy. So that's what I'm drinking. Just with a little bit of oat milk. And it's lovely. So next, what I'm wearing. As I mentioned in the last episode, I don't have a lot of knitted garments yet because I am mostly a sock knitter, and I'm kind of only just branching out into more garment knitting. So I don't have very many, so I'm not going to be one of those podcasters who's wearing a different thing that they knitted in every single episode, I suspect, because that's a lot of pressure for me to try and make one every 2 weeks. But this is the first jumper I ever knit, and I am intensely proud of it still, even though, you know, now it's possibly not the style that I would choose to do again and stuff. It's beautiful, it's a lovely pattern, it's lovely yarn. So let me talk about this. If you've made one, or if you know of Locatelli at all, I'm sure you will have heard of the Boxy. Jude from Stranded Dye Works has also previously knitted many of these in the past and owns a fair few. So I'm gonna get up a little bit so you can see. This is the Boxy by Locatelli, and I knit it out of Viking Yarns, who I don't think is dyeing anymore, but if they are, I'll link to their Etsy store in my show notes. And this was the petrol colourway, and I love it because it's mostly just grey, but if you look closely, hopefully you'll be able to see, there's like flecks of pink, some blue in there, lots of little like oil spilly colours, and I really, really like it a lot. I went down a couple of needle sizes to do this because I wanted it to be slightly closer fitting, but that did have some implications on the arms. So I can't remember off the top of my head which size I made. I might have put my notes on Ravelry. I confess I'm terrible with Ravelry, so, and I'm trying not to do too much through there as well for kind of accessibility reasons and stuff. So I don't know if my notes are on there, but I can't remember which size I made. And I went down, I think I knitted this on a 4mm, I want to say. I think I knit the body on a 4, possibly 4.5mm needle. There's a little bit of short row shaping in the back, just to bring the back of the neck up a little bit. I really like the neckline on this. And then it's just got these kind of interesting garter stitch details on the shoulders, which you can omit. if you don't like them, but I actually think it gives it quite a cool bit of texture interest, which I really like. And I alternated skeins for the body, so the body is knitted seamless in the round, and I alternated using the helix method for the body, and then I didn't for the sleeves because, quite honestly, who can be bothered to swap skeins everywhere for a sleeve? I did 3/4 length sleeves, which, looking back on it, they are very practical, because for a boxy sweater, like, you know, you don't want to, it can get in the way if it's too bat wing, so that was part of why I went down a needle size as well, so that I wouldn't have, so the break wouldn't be quite so low, just because I find that to be a bit impractical. You know, if I lift my arms up, the whole thing comes up, and also putting it under other garments, which, you know, in the winter in the UK, you go outside, you want to put a big coat on, and I found that things that are too drop shoulder, dropped and bat wing is really tricky to do that with, so I made it a little bit less. What that did mean though was I did have to pick up quite a lot more stitches for the arms, so I think I did something like 70 something stitches, whereas the pattern called for quite a lot less than that. So I tried it on and I worked out how many I would need, and I think I ripped one of the sleeves back a few times to get the right circumference for me, and then I just knit them straight. I don't think I did any decreases, maybe a couple. Oh yeah, there are a few. One. Yeah, just from here to the end, there's a like 3 or 4 sets of decreases, but not a lot, so slightly tapered just so that it would fit. I wish I'd done the ribbing longer, both on the body and the sleeves. That's my one thing, and it is part of the pattern, but I wish I'd done it a little bit longer, because they do roll in, the sleeves roll in on themselves a little bit, which I feel like just makes it look a little bit less finished, a little bit less polished. But I love this, I wear it a lot. It's superwash merino, so it's not my favourite, but it's held up really well given the amount of wear that it's had. It has pilled a little bit, but I would say, given how loose fitting it is, I really thought that it would pill more. It has kind of on my elbows, all the kind of standard places that you're really hard wearing, and I am very hard wearing in my knits. I don't treat them as well as I should, especially the superwash ones. But yeah, it's held up really well. So that's what I'm wearing. It's the Boxy by Locatelli. And I like it. I like it a lot. It's a great beginner pattern. There was a little bit of working out, which I think was largely because I had never knit a sweater or a jumper before, rather than anything wrong with the pattern. Locatelli writes incredible patterns. Enough said. So, I don't have any finished objects to show you. It doesn't mean I haven't finished any. I have finished one quite important finished object since last time, but it's my first sock pattern and it's currently being tested. It's the Little Wings socks, which if you're on Instagram you can follow the hashtag, and if I've got an amazing set of test knitters. I was really blown away. I was terrified of releasing it, and I thought I'd done a terrible job, and I thought no one would be interested. And then I released the pattern, the call for testers on Instagram, and I had to close it again 12 hours later because I had so many people respond. So thank you so much for all the people who applied, all the people who went to apply and saw that it was already closed. Thank you. And yeah, I don't know, I'm just intensely humbled by the whole thing. I wasn't expecting anyone to be interested, so that's amazing. It's just a really simple 2-colour striped sock with a little detail down the front centre. And yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm actually going to pause because I need to also tell you about my socks. I totally forgot to tell you about my socks, which I did say I would do, and I should, because I have a lot of socks, so they are the thing that I will be wearing that will change every episode. And also this is a great pattern from a friend, so we should definitely talk about them. Fair warning, they have pilled terribly, and that's my fault. But these beautiful socks, apologies about the inevitable dog and probably human hair. My husband also has very long hair, it's the thing. So these are the Fairy Gathering socks, I think they're called, by GNOMES Knit. My friend Dimmy. They are fantastic. I've made them twice. This actually is the second pair. I test knit them for her as well. but this is the second pair that I've made. I love them. I will definitely make them again. They've got a really cute stitch, very Moorish stitch pattern, but it's very easy, and it does give the sock a little bit of grip as well without being a ribbed sock, which of course you can make, and ribbed socks are great for just hugging your feet a little bit more. But they're really good. I love them a lot. The yarn I used, it's a good question. I think this grey is Somerset Yarns charcoal, possibly, colourway, something like that. And this, I think, might also be Somerset Yarns actually. I've had these a while, so they are really, really horrible. The yarn hasn't held up well because I have trashed them, not because of the yarn at all. I made them quite a long time ago and I threw them in the washing machine by accident, and they didn't do very well out of it, let's say that. But yeah, this yellow is, I can't remember the colour name now, I will find it. But also Somerset Yarns, I believe. I love yellow and grey. It's like one of my favourite colour combinations in the world. Love it. I really like them. I wear them a lot. I made some, these are shorties. I've made a longer set as well, but they are, yeah, fantastic socks. So now let's get back to finished objects. So I finished a few pairs of my Little Wings socks, which is my new sock pattern. And yeah, the whole process has been so much fun so far. We're nearly done with the testing, which is amazing. I've had loads of great feedback. When I first started getting comments, inevitably I was like, oh God, I've done a terrible job. And then I remembered, no, that's the point of testing. That's why we do this. And it's my first pattern. So, you know, there were many things that I hadn't thought about. Because I am quite a prolific sock knitter as well, I tried to make it a really beginner friendly pattern, and then I think there were a few places that I wrote things and I needed to explain them a bit better, because the things that I took for granted as someone who makes socks all the time. So that is finished objects, but I can't show them to you yet because I'm going to show them on the next podcast when the pattern's out, which is very exciting. I'm hoping to release the pattern around the time I release the next episode of this. So yeah, if you're interested in them, watch this space. Works in progress, however, there are a few, and then I also need to talk about some plans because I have all the plans. All the plans. At the moment, my brain is very much in that space of I have all these things that I want to make of patterns that I see, and I also have so many ideas for patterns that I want to design, and I only have 2 hands and it's a problem. So we'll get to that. So works in progress. I'm not going to show the birch sweater again because frankly I've done about 2 inches on that one sleeve that I had shown last time, but I do love it. I'm really enjoying knitting on it. I've just been a bit sock obsessed and had a little fix that I'm doing. I'm just putting everything else on hold briefly while I fix that. So I'm going to talk about that first. This it's another Hokey Locatelli pattern, but it was made for someone else and I can't remember now, but I'll put all the details on screen and in my show notes. So my brother, he has a birthday around Christmas, and every year I say, look, I'll make you or give you a bigger present because we don't really do Christmas presents that much in my family. I make things or I knit things if I have the time and the headspace, but we don't really do gift exchanges as such. So no one else really gets presents, but I said to him that if he wanted a garment, I would make him one, also to give myself practice at making something, for making a garment for a guy, because I've only made socks for men and hats and stuff. I've never made a garment for any of my male friends or relatives thus far. So I made this, and I will say I made it a bit terrifyingly quickly. I think I might have been ill or something, and I had a few days of just solid knitting on it, and it went very, very fast. I think I did it in a few weeks. But this is the basic raglan sweater by Hokey Locatelli. And as you'll see, the body's not finished. And there is a reason. I did finish it and I gave it to him and all the things, and it's even got a little tag in it. So this is knit out of acrylic. Acrylic's not my favourite to knit with, but I also really, really understand not everybody has the time, especially people that I know who have families and really, really busy lives. Not everyone has time to have non-superwash hand wash only garments, and I really appreciate that. So I spoke to my brother and said, you know, what sort of fibre would you like? And I told him all about the pros and cons of all the different kinds of yarn, and I said acrylic is the easiest to take care of, but it holds odours the most. You know, it's not as nice for the environment because it is effectively plastic, etc, etc, but it's by far the easiest one to take care of. And he said, just because of the kind of life that he has, he said, I just don't think I'd be able to take care of a woolen jumper. And I said, that's fine. So I looked around for some acrylic, and I discovered that Woolly Knit, who, if you watch the Create Bear podcast, or Heather and Hops, Cat from Heather and Hops, or who else? Amy Palco from The Meaningful Stitch as well. I think she's knit some Woolly Knit stuff. They're a UK based company who do really, really affordable yarn and cones of like British wool. And I really, really like their stuff. I've got a few cones to do things with for myself, but they also do acrylic and it's very cheap. So I bought two 500 gram cones of this grey, which is a fingering weight, and I held it double. So this is currently wound up double to make a DK, and it worked perfectly. It's very quick to knit. It's not my favourite, again, like, you know, feeling wise, I love woolly wool, like really, really like toothy, quite rustic, however you want to call it, less processed natural fibres, animal fibres, but it was surprisingly enjoyable to knit. I did a few amendments. So this collar I made into a rolled collar just so it would have a little bit more integrity to it, and I'm really glad I did actually. It was an experiment to see if I could get this. I think I talked about it in the last episode that I have this problem with raglans where sometimes they end up quite square because there's such a point of tension here on the raglan increases / decreases depending on which way you're knitting it. So I tried doing double the amount of ribbing, and then I just folded it over, knit it together with the stitch below all the way around, and then carried on in stockinette, and it worked beautifully. And I will say it's also given a really lovely stretchy but very finished on the inside. It looks really nice, so really happy I did that. I added in this little tag for him so he knew which side the back was, because there are some short rows but it's not that easy to tell. And these were actually gifted to me. I've got a little pack of them. I don't know if you can see that. And it says handmade with love by Mary. I have a pack of those. They were gifted to me by some work colleagues when I left an old job, which was really lovely of them. So why it's now unfinished again. Very straightforwardly, he put it on. He's a very tall, very skinny human. He's always been really slim, and but he has quite broad shoulders. So I knew that I needed to make really long arms, because also he has a habit where he pulls his sleeves over and kind of holds them up by his face when he's thinking, and I knew that he would do that. So in order to stop him fully like overstretching the sleeves, I made them extra long so that they just kind of, he can fold them up or push them up if he doesn't want them over his hands, but they kind of naturally sit about here, which was great, and he really likes that. But the body is just a touch too short, like a couple of inches. So I got him to put it on for me last time I saw him and said, well, I can obviously rip it back and make it longer, but actually it's also quite wide at the body. So there are a couple of decreases right under the armpits to do some waist shaping. And then I just knit straight down, because being a boy, there's no need to do kind of an in and then an out again. But interestingly, I'd done a little bit of in, but not enough. So it was kind of flapping around at his hips. And he lives in this like beautiful 4-story townhouse, but it's very old and quite cold. So I said, well, yeah, I think I probably need to decrease it a touch more. So I took it back from him, ripped it back, which I did actually put a story about on my Instagram the other day. It's one of those things that's both really satisfying, because once you get it on the ball winder and you're just doing this and the garment's just going like back, it's like really satisfying, but also your heart's just going, oh my god, it took me so long to do this. So I'm just quietly knitting on that when I have a minute, trying to get it finished. This is the remainder of what was what I used. and it was almost exactly 500 grams total of acrylic to make the whole sweater. So this is basically the rest of the first cone. And then I wound up 200 grams worth of the other cone. I won't need anywhere near that much, but that's fine. And I've wound them up separately as fingering weight cakes, because I would like to attempt to make a fingering weight jumper for myself out of the remainder, and I think I'll be able to do it. So I'm gonna knit until I get to here, to the end of this, and I've done a couple more decreases. Not a lot, I think I've decreased another 6 stitches total. And then from this point on, I'm just knitting straight until I get to the end of that cake, and then I'm going to add the ribbing as a part of the new cake, which hopefully will give it enough. He's one of those people where being a little bit too long is fine, but being a bit too short is tricky because he is very, very tall and has a very long body. So that's whip number 1. Whip number 2 is inevitably a pair of socks. So I have them in my little basket. I had a question about my basket, so I did put a post about it on my Instagram. I have 2 of these. One of them is currently holding the birch sweater that I'm not really showing today. And then this one is mostly my sock basket. So one of these is constantly coming around the house with me, and I love them because I have a bit of a tendency that if I put things in project bags, I have a habit of forgetting that they exist, which is not ideal. So I like to have whatever I'm currently working on out so that it reminds me to finish it. I have a few things kicking around in project bags that I completely forgot I had started, that I'm either going to need to rip back or try and work out if I'm going to complete them or if I'm going to finish them early and things like that. I might talk about that in another podcast episode. But I'm going to briefly flash these up, and I am going to talk about the yarn because these are an experiment for a new sock design. So I'm not going to flash them up too much, but I will show you, roughly speaking, what they look like. And they currently look like that. So they are made again of MONDIM, so Retrosaria, Rosa, Pomar, MONDIM, and I can't remember the colourways off the top of my head, but they are the mustardy yellow and the lighter of the 2 kind of dirty pinks that they do. I love this yarn. I love it so much. It makes me just really, really happy. I can't really explain why. It feels lovely in my hand. The colours are vibrant but muted at the same time, so they're not really in your face, which I really like from a kind of personal wardrobe standpoint. I don't wear a lot of really intensely bright colours. I do in socks, but I think one of the things about knitting with wool especially is that colours tend not to be quite as neon and artificial with yarn, and I really like that. So yeah, I love the yarn a lot. So those are my only whips at the minute. So I have 2 jumpers that need finishing. So the raglan sweater for my brother and the birch sweater that I was making last episode, which I need to complete. I've nearly finished the first sleeve, and then I just need to do the second sleeve. And then this new pair of socks, which I'll probably make a couple of pairs of before I finish writing the pattern, and I won't be putting it out for testers until March maybe. I think I'm going to do the little wing socks first. I'm thinking about calling this one the flock socks, because it's the same stitch. It uses the same stitch as the little wing socks, which I called the little wing stitch. But it's just spread out over the sock in a different way. And then there's going to be some fanciness in the leg as well. So yeah, thinking about calling it the flock socks. And then plans, all the plans. So I have in my yarn catalogue, I have quite a big amount of Nutidin. I probably won't be buying any more from them for a while. That's for a couple of different reasons. But the main one is it's just really, really expensive to buy in the UK. So unless I'm doing like a group order with some friends, it's intense. I think the last time I got some, it cost me about £50 in customs to get it here, which on top of an already quite expensive yarn order, because I'd ordered a couple of like garment quantities. It just wasn't financially really practical for me. So thanks Brexit, of course. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not really practical for me to buy. That being said, I have quite a lot left. So I have the dark purple that I'm making the birch sweater out of, and the coral colour, and then I also have the yellow that I made my tulip out of, which I was wearing in the last episode, and then I also have quite a lot of grey. I bought a sweater quantity of I think it's called Medvind, which is it's a beautiful grey colour, and I have plans for that. So plans. The first thing was I had this idea about making a fade between, like a sunset fade, and it's been floating around in my head for a while, and then the other day I couldn't sleep, and about 2 o'clock in the morning I really couldn't sleep, and my brain wouldn't let go of this idea, so I got up and I knit it. So it's just a little swatch. It's nothing super exciting, but this is the swatch and how it came out. Oh, whichever way I suppose you wanted to look at it. And interestingly, on camera, I think it's really cute. So maybe I should do it. Maybe I just needed to sit with it for a few days. This happens a lot, I think. You make something and you go, not sure. And then you leave it and then you come back to it and go, oh, actually, maybe. So I think it's quite cute, actually. And the colours definitely work together. I mean, all of their colours are beautiful. So this is Saliged. This is Sinnen, I think, and this is Bariget, something like that, which is the purple. So what I did, fairly straightforward, is I just faded them by using, so I knit with 2 strands the whole time, but I'm going to fold it in half so that the light's not coming through it so much. So there we go. So this is 2 strands of the yellow. This is a strand of the yellow and a strand of the pink, 2 strands of the pink and the purple, and 2 strands of the purple. So it's pretty straightforward marling fade technique. If you haven't done it, I recommend you try it. If you have a few colours that you think go together, this is a really lovely little way to see if they might work in a garment. I put garter stitches on the edges of my swatch, I haven't blocked it yet, as you can see, but just so that it wouldn't roll up on itself quite as much, because stockinette loves to roll. And all my ends are still hanging out here in the back. So yeah, for those of you who haven't knitted with Knitted In, it's a very different knitting experience. Not just Knitted In, so Uppbeat is another one. That's another unspun. There are lots of unspun yarns out there, but Knitted In's kind of one of these, I don't want to say cult following, but trendy. Lots of people are knitting with it, lots of people talk about it. The ethos of the makers and what they're trying to do with their yarn is really lovely. Yeah, so, you know, unfortunately for me it's just not financially viable really, but it is stunning. So I wonder if I should make something out of this now that I'm looking at it. I wonder if I should, because on camera it's much cuter than I thought when I'm just sort of staring at it. I thought it was really stripy, but it's not as stripy as I thought, and I wonder if maybe I could sort of do some colour work to make it a bit less stripy as well. We'll see. We'll see. So this is the thing that's floating around in my head at the moment, and I'm thinking about just self-drafting a little sweater or something. The other question, I'm going to be playing Yarn Chicken the whole time, so we'll see. But I do have a fair amount left of each colour. Got tons of the coral left for sure. So yeah, maybe I'll make a little something out of that. So that's kind of intention number 1, I guess you could say. Intention number 2, which I think I may also try and make with Newstead because I think the texture of it would be lovely, is the first sweater. I'll see if I can put a picture in to show you the first sweater by Hive knits. I cannot believe that this is her first pattern, and it's stunning. It's such a beautiful jumper. It's like the perfect, I think I mentioned before, like my general aesthetic for myself is to have you know, simple everyday garments. Oh, kick the tripod, of course I did. Simple everyday garments that have a little bit of interest, but are mostly just like basics that are really practical, that you can wear over and over and over again, because I do feel like I don't think I'm someone who's ever going to have like 40 knitted jumpers. And so for me, it's important that each thing that I make is really wearable and that goes with my wardrobe, or goes with the direction I want my wardrobe to go in, maybe. So yeah, I saw that, I've been seeing it kicking around on Instagram. I'm obsessed. I love it so much. It's coming out on Saturday. I'm 100% going to buy it. And after the birch sweater is finished, that is the next thing that I'm going to be casting on for myself. I was going to be casting on the bubble jumper, which I can't remember the name of, but again, I'll put it on in the show notes and on screen, which Sarah from Sarah Kareen Knits, or the Sip and Knit podcast, she gifted me that for Christmas, which was absolutely adorable of her. So that pattern is sitting in my library, and I will make it, but I think I want to make it out of something else and not out of Newton. So for now, I don't have a lot of sweater quantities of commercial yarn, but I do also have some hand spun. So I have been attempting to learn how to spin, and I say that as like the newest of newbies. I've spun, I think 2 or 3 skeins worth of yarn at all. That's it. And I am currently spinning some fibre that was gifted to me by Kat. I'm probably not going to talk about spinning too much in this podcast, but if you're interested, let me know in the comments. I can show you what I'm doing, how I'm finding it. I'm using the electric eel wheel e-spinner because I wanted to try it out, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to invest in a full wheel. I think I may do at some point, and I'm also definitely going to go and have a spinning class with Kim at Alternate Universe, which is this amazing yarn store in Bristol. So I'm going to book in and go and do a spinning class with her to get the feel of how an actual wheel works, hopefully. So yeah, I have intentions about spinning, but for now I'm just trying to spin up this amazing wedding yarn that Kat gifted to us. It's John Arbon, it's beautiful, it's black and red fibre, and I'm trying to make it into sock yarn, or at least sock weight yarn. I may not make it into socks because I'm a bit worried about how well it would hold up as socks, mainly because I'm spinning it, not because I think the fibre would be fine, but given that I'm such a new spinner, I'm not sure that putting it into something as hard wearing as socks is a great plan. So I'm thinking I might make a MUSSELBURGH hat for my husband. I have 2 and I love them. At some point I will wear one on a podcast. That the MUSSELBURGH is a pattern by Ysolda Teague, and it's amazing. It's such a good pattern. It's like, if you love knitting stockinette tubes for socks, it's basically just a big version of that with a little bit of interest at each end, where you have to cast on and increase and then tube and then decrease and then cast off. So you have this big strange looking thing, and then you fold it in on itself. So you have this like beautifully structured hat. And yeah, it's just amazing. I have 2. I love them very much. I've also knitted one for my dad, so I've actually made it 3 times. It's a good pattern. I'll probably knit, and hopefully knit it again for my husband. So that is currently all of my intentions. And then I watched Sarah from Sarah Kareen Knits' new podcast about how she's planning her knitting for this year, and my brain went, oh, maybe I should make some actual plans. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm not gonna put it into months of when I want to do things, but I think I will make a little list and be a bit more intentional about what I'd like to knit next, especially because because I'm at this weird creative stage of just all the knitting ideas for designs and patterns and stuff that I'd like to create as well, it gets quite overwhelming because there are also things from other people that I really want to make and support and share and tell people about, because I think there are just too many talented people in this space and we need to talk about them all. So yeah, that's currently what I'm working on. I think that's probably it for today. I will, in the next podcast, be showing you the Little Wings socks. And if you're interested, I'll put the details about it in my show notes as well. But I'm hoping to release the pattern in mid-February. And yeah, it's really exciting. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to everyone who's doing the test knit and everyone who's been sharing about it. You're all amazing people. And I hope to sit down and have a chat with you again very soon.